Okay, so now it's 4:05, so I guess I'll just get started then. So thank you all for taking time out of your day. I know that it's been a long day of probably just like having fun and just like going to so many different sessions today and the Twin City Startup Week, so I really appreciate you all coming today. Um, my name is Vien, and I go by she, her, hers, and I'm a current McAllister College student. And for the past 8 months, I've had the wonderful opportunity to intern at Say Kid. And if you haven't heard of Say Kid, it's a local startup in the Twin Cities that is revolutionizing the way at-home learning is like through voice technology. And actually, this past year, Say Kid won the Amazon EdTech Alexa Skills Challenge. And so for my talk today, I'm really just going to be telling you about my story of how, as a first-generation woman of color, how I ended up breaking into tech through my internship at Say Kid. Before I start jumping into that, I want to share some context of my story through talking a little bit about intersectionality. So for a little bit of trivia, in the chat, I want people to just like guess the percentage of like first generation college students at McAllister College when I first started. So like in the class of 2022. So I'll give everybody like a few seconds to just like throw in their guesses into the chat. These are pretty good guesses. But I was like, I'm like Becca's guess. I was like, yeah, it feels like 5%, honestly. But then actually it's actually around 16%. So then inside of my class, there were 16% first generation college students in there, which and it's like already a pretty small number. And so let's say on top of that, let's say 57% of students at Mac are women. So let's apply that to the 16%. So then this ends up being around like 9% of the students in my class are first generation college students and also women. And around like 41% of McAllister's students are actually STEM majors. So then once we apply that to the 41%, then that leaves about like less than 4% of my class are first generation college students, women, and are actually in STEM. And I haven't even talked about just like, I haven't even added the percentage around like being a person of color, and also if like they even stay in STEM during college and if they graduate from college at all. And so then this means that around like 25 out of 624 students in my class are first generation college students and women and are in STEM. So then how did our number get so small already? And this is where intersectionality really comes in and plays a part. So then like, let's say for example, like we simplify life to like a simple road that we're all traveling on together. And on this road, we face different intersections, and those represent the intersections of our identity. So, and like depending on what we identify as, we get different road laws for these intersections. So for example, some of the intersections we could face would be like Gender Avenue, First Generation Street, or like BIPOC Drive. And an example of what happens at like these intersections are like, let's say we're all stopped at like First Generation Street. And at the street, it's like if you identify as first generation college student, then you're blindfolded through this. While if you're not a first generation college student, then like your guardian is able to just drive you through the intersection without a problem. So I really just want to make this more interactive and give everybody a few seconds to think about some own challenges that they can think that they would face at these intersections on our road of life. So like for me, example, like a real life example of this would be like if I was like facing Gender Avenue, then it would be like my value would be associated with my appearances, and that would just be like something that I would face in like real life. So just like a few seconds, give everybody like type in the chat about like real life challenges they can really think about in some of the intersections I listed. Yeah, thank you so much for like sharing in the chat. Like these are really like real struggles. Like Delon, I can really relate about like not understanding like how to even start the application process for college, and also for like for Becca. I mean, like personally, I don't know, but like my mom is like a Vietnamese immigrant, so like I like see that chat like that difficulty for her. So I'm like, as proven in the chat, life isn't just a simple road where we just like face these intersections once and then like where you just move on. It's like these struggles are part of our identity and like will be continuing to be a part of like our lives. And so then, but for now, like let's jump back into like my simple metaphor. Um, and so let's say like once I'm through all of these intersections, I then end up realizing that like I'm miles away from like all the other peers, from like many of my peers that I started off on this road of life with. And I realized also that like the laws that I've been driving with are very different than the laws that they've been driving with. And the crazy thing is that I didn't realize that I was driving on different, like with different laws until I actually came to McAllister College. And so in an effort to catch up with like my more privileged peers, I would try and take career advice like wherever I heard it and just kind of like would roll with it without actually understanding like what it meant or like what to do with that. And spoiler alert, there are many mistakes ahead in this journey. So my story begins with me returning to campus for like my second year at McAllister College. It's like super exciting. We're reuniting with a lot of people. And, you know, I feel like I'm immediately bombarded with like people's experiences about this amazing, like life-changing internship that they had. And that just like, this was like amazing. And they got it like right after their first year. And it started to dawn on me where I was just like, I don't know how to follow up with that because I worked retail I worked retail for the summer. So I started feeling behind and it was like my anxiety started creeping up where it was just like I had all these questions around like, did I really just like jeopardize my career by not having like an internship right off the bat after first year? And just like, what if this means that I'm not going to get a job after college? Just like these big, very like, oh my gosh, what if questions. And so then to make up for the lack of experience that I had during the summer, I ended up applying to like 20 opportunities just out of nowhere, just like really random ones. And I ended up getting none of them except for this 2.5-week racquetball internship. And so at the time I was thinking like, you know what? Any experience is good experience, right? The awkward part about that is that this would actually end up probably being one of like the worst decisions I made in terms of like career in the past like 20 years that I've been living so far. Because one, I didn't know what racquetball was. Two, I didn't like or play sports. And three, it was like branded as this amazing like internship where you could work in like we could work in different areas of like the racquetball tournament or whatever, but really it was just like manual labor. So then for like 2.5 weeks, I was just working. I was like commuting from St. Paul to Minneapolis and back and forth. And I would just be doing these menial tasks. It was like carrying boxes, cleaning, and it's like setting up chairs, and all of this was unpaid. And so it was like I was just really drained from the commuting and like doing all of this like hard labor where I felt like I wasn't getting any award from it. And like even for like the most shallowest reason of like, oh, I just have this internship for like putting it on my resume, it's like it wasn't even worth putting it on my resume at all. And so then one day I ended up just snapping and realizing that like I was really worth more than this. Like my time, my stress, my energy was worth more than this. Like because of like how late the internship would happen, it's like I would skip meals, like I would stay up late. So it was like I was hungry a lot of the time. I would stay up late just to like finish my homework from after doing this internship. And like I just felt like I like realized that I deserved internships and like experiences where I was like actually cared for. Because I'm like at this internship, you know, I would be mixed up with the only other Asian girl there. And like my name would be mispronounced like every time I went. And from this moment, it was like, I realized I learned to just like never settle. And also like someone once told my friend that her complacency would be the death of her career. And like, I've kind of held this to like my heart, even though it wasn't told to me directly, because then like this decision to take on this racquetball internship almost killed my opportunity to work at an incredible company. And so then like during this application frenzy, I also started reaching out to like organizations and seeing like, oh, who would respond and who would want to like start talking with me and like connect and like network. And so then actually Say Kid was the only one that got back to me. And so then I had set up this really nice like coffee meeting with Delan. I was like super excited. And like Say Kid was like this dream company where I was just like, oh my gosh, I get to combine my like interest in computer science with like my passion to like change education. And it kind of like all came crashing down when the email came about like, oh, by the way, you got this racquetball internship. And in that moment, it was like I had to decide either stability or like possibility. And like as you can tell, I ended up choosing this stability in the like stable internship. And it's like, but now that everything I had planned for this informational interview with Delan, it was kind of like it felt like I just threw it all like out the window because then like I had this giant plan of just like how to weasel in like talking about like internships, and I had prepared like a lot of research, and I had like practice with my roommates for this informational, and it was like I was just like ready to talk about and like to get that internship, and then it was just like I had a structure, I had a goal, but now like everything was just thrown out the window, and I was just like, how do I even navigate this anymore? And it was like, do I choose to like, oh, just go along like normal? Or do I choose to just like not lead on Delan and just say like, I don't have time anymore because like this racquetball internship took all of my time. And so then I ended up going with the latter. And I was just really hoping that like informational interviews were really just like as casual as people said they were, and that it was more focused on the informational part and not the interview part. And oh, did I also mention that this was my first informational interview? So the meeting went as well as like I could have expected. You know, Dawn was like super nice, super like gave me a lot of grace, and like I learned a lot about Say Kid. And but even though the interview like technically like physically didn't erupt in flames, it was like I felt like I just knew I bombed it, and it was like he traveled all this way. It was like the ironic thing of like he traveled all this way for like an hour. Like he used up so much time just for me to tell him that I don't have time. And it was just like I remember waiting at the bus stop afterwards going like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible. Like I just messed up this perfect opportunity. Like I'm never gonna bounce back from this. Like I was like crying, almost crying at the bus stop. And it was like really the big question was like, how do I even bounce back from this? And really it was just like I ended up being depressed for the next few days just because of just like how sad I was I lost this opportunity. And it didn't help that racquetball was also starting around that time. And I know that this was just one bad informational, but it felt like after getting no opportunities and like getting no return emails, it was just like I just shredded like that last chance of like having a good opportunity, just like and just leaving it as is. And like after giving myself some time to like really think about it, I realized that I was still okay and that like my career was okay and that there was still like a world full of opportunities out there. And like even though this door had closed, that like it had taught me how to open new ones for the future. But also during this realization, I realized that like working as Say Kid, like the possibility of working as Say Kid was something that I didn't just want to let go without a fight. And so that even though it sounds really corny, it was like I really believed in myself and like listened to what I wanted for the first time throughout this whole process. And I ended up working up the courage to like cold email Delan again, like a few months later. And actually, he would end up getting back to me a lot sooner than I thought. And so then there was like this whole switch around where he was like, he told me about how like in the spring he's gonna put together a cohort of like McAllister interns and that he was happy to like have me be a part of that cohort, which is like insane to say that like, oh wait, what? Like you're happy to have me there. And so then after like everything I did, and so then like I was super excited. Like I feel like I blacked out when I read the email because then I was sitting down when I first started reading it, and like when I actually came to, I found myself like jumping up and down in my living room with my like roommates, and they were just so confused because they were like, "You just messed up this opportunity. How are you getting it now?" And so then soon enough, the internship would start, and I would find out like that Say Kid was really just like, and the lawn would really make Say Kid such a like caring and like place that really cared about inclusion and like diversity, and like really cared about how like the people in and like the interns were like feeling. Because then I remember just like Delon just going the extra mile to just like train us, and also like one day he bought a Subway and like And it was just like, even with COVID hitting, it was like he made sure that like this was still a meaningful experience, even if it had to be switched to online. And it was just like, it made me realize that, like, you know what, like, we should all, like, employers should strive to really like care about their employees, because then when you care for them to thrive, then like your company also flourishes. And also, like, for all the amount of work that we've put in to get to where we are, like, we also deserve to like search out those companies that really do care for us. And so then, like, speaking of thriving, as the spring was coming to an end, I realized that the internship was like just beginning, and like that I hadn't even finished my game yet. And I was just like, I really wanted to continue this during the summer. So I ended up talking to Delon, and like I found some McAllister funding, and I made it possible for me to continue working with Say Kid for the summer. And it was like, without like school on my shoulders and everything, I was able to like put 110% of myself into everything I did. Like for my game, like Robot Ravers, it was like I put in all this creativity to have like different themes, and also like work really hard to make sure these like songs worked. And also for like the name game, it was like I made a lot of effort to make these rhyme, and also to found sound effects. Like I put hours and hours and hours into these games. And in both games, like, and I'm happy to say that both of these games are published. And you know, it's like I see them as like my pride and joy, and like my children, kind of, just because of how much hours I put into them. And like honestly, this internship like changed my life. It's like I went from this like terrified person in January, like when we first started the internship, that was like unconfident, unskilled, and especially like walking on eggshells after I messed up this informational. And like now I'm standing here, or sitting here in front of all of you, like telling you my story, and just like ready to just like take on anything that comes my way. And you know, it's like I realize now that, like, you know, I'm super grateful for Delon for like giving me that second chance, or for making, and like for making sure that, like, you know, for promoting my growth. But like really throughout all of this, it was like I put in all the work to get myself here, and I wouldn't be able to do that without my resilience and persistence and grit that I got from the multiple intersections of my identity. Like I look back and I think about like how being a first generation college student made it so much harder to apply for college, but it really taught me about how to navigate different terrains. Um, and also, like being a woman, it's like I felt like I was growing up just being told like you're too emotional, but also like my high emotional intelligence made me be able to like create better experiences and to be able to connect with like users better. And you know, like I started off this talk with talking about like these intersections of our identity as like burdens, but really it's like these are the things that make us stand out and make us special, and to have different perspectives. And like tech fields and like other fields need more of these different perspectives. And you know, I shared a lot of my mistakes today and a lot of lessons I've learned. And and you know, honestly, you can do like whatever you want with like what I talked about, but really it's just like the most important thing is to like to put yourself at the center of this, because there is no perfect formula to like breaking into the field. It's really just about like making sure that like you're getting your needs and your wants, because then you also deserve to thrive. And if you believe that, then so do employers. And like I know it won't be an easy journey ahead, but if a girl from California can fly all the way to Minnesota and learn that there's somehow a tech scene here and break into it somehow, then I know you can too. Thank you so much for listening. We have 10 minutes, 5 minutes for questions. So you can throw them in the chat. Yeah, thank you so much for just spending time with me today. Um, okay, what advice would I have for other employers? I think the advice that I would have for other employers are to like recruit outside of the box, kind of, because then I know that like in we talk a lot about how employers look at like the big universities, and like McAllister College is a small liberal arts college, but I really do think that like it's really about stepping outside that box and like considering people that you wouldn't really think about at first sight, like, you know, people that don't have like that experience, but it's also like you notice like their personality and like who they are, and just like seeing how all like about how different experiences can really like contribute to your organization, as well as like other than just like people that have the technical skills for it. Thank you so much, Becca. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have any more questions, I can put my email into the chat. So like if you have questions later on, you could just like email me and just like let me know, or you could also let me know your thoughts about this. Yeah, so thank you so much for spending time with me today. Um, yeah, it was a wonderful time, and I hope that those in Minnesota got a chance to like go outside for a little bit and enjoy the sunshine.